we're just kind of at this point of like, do we keep doing this? Do we just sell everything off and be done with it? Because she's raising 2 newborns by herself while I'm gone. And yeah, I mean, it was a ton of work.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Dynamis Podcast, guys. We have a super special episode, special to me for a lot of reasons. We're on the road, which seems to be the common occurrence recently. We filmed one in Coeur d'Alene this morning, and we are coming to you from Sandpoint, Idaho this afternoon. And the company, the entrepreneur that we're going to interview this afternoon has got a ton going on. This is a hard charger, a fit dude who's a dad, a husband, leading from the front, growing a company. There's so many rabbit holes that we're going to dig into. And his story is just incredible. The journey that he's on is absolutely inspirational. I'm just excited to get into it. It's special to me for a couple reasons. This is an episode that I call Soft Landing, which is an offshoot of the Dynamis Podcast, where we interview special operations entrepreneurs that have transitioned from, the soft world into business and entrepreneurship. And today we're going to interview TJ White, who happened to come from 2nd Ranger Battalion. We happen to be up in Ranger Regiment at the same exact time. Our times overlap, deployment cycles overlap, and we're on the same journey. And we got here in similar ways. And TJ is the owner, the founder, the CEO of a company called Wooby Hoody. I would encourage anybody listening to this episode, stop what you're doing, get out your phone, go to social media, and check it out. And we're going to get into what a Wooby Hoody is, why Woobies are so special to veterans in particular, and then just this guy's incredible story. So yeah, TJ, welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Give us a little bit about you, your background. We're going to get into business. We're going to get into Wooby Hoody in particular. But right now, tell us who you are. Give us the picture of the journey that you've been on, and we'll get into Wooby Hoody in a minute.
Okay. Yeah. Quick snapshot. I grew up in Southeast Kansas, right around the Wichita area. Was in and out of trouble a lot as a kid, as I think a lot of us were. That's why we ended up where we ended up. I was on juvenile diversion, I think at 17. I got off at 19, immediately joined the Army because I knew I had to get out of there. Yeah, I got to the Army, went basic airborne RIP. I got to 2nd Ranger Battalion in 2006. I was there from 06 to 2012, ACO, and then I went over to Recce for 3 deployments. So a total of 7 deployments, 4 on the line and 3 over in Recce. After that, got out, started contracting. I did that for about a decade. It was that time that I started Wooby Hoody. I met my wife during that time. And yeah, we hit it off. We started building this thing and ended up here in beautiful Sandpoint, Idaho. And it's just been growing ever since.
So you started Wooby Hoody while you were actively contracting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a lot of audience members that are veterans, but a large majority have no idea about anything you just talked about. So let's back up. So you came to 2nd Ranger Battalion, and as is common, you found a bunch of misfits. And that's what I like to lovingly refer to Ranger Regiment as like the Lost Boys, right?
Yeah.
Peter Pan in Wonderland, all the Lost Boys didn't have anywhere to go. Somehow we all ended up in Ranger Regiment. And all of our backgrounds are so similar. Our storylines are so similar.
Yeah.
We come from difficult beginnings, challenging beginnings. And oftentimes it's not because we're just bad kids. It's a lot of people that you meet in Ranger Regiment in particular are some of the most intelligent, hyper-focused, incredible humans you've ever met who are just bored out of their mind and find mischief.
Yes.
Really. But also didn't come from the nuclear family, mom and dad at dinner table every night. We're talking about kids that are tough, that fought, that scrapped, that were working at young ages to figure it out. And what it leads to is this combination and this mixture of unstoppable human beings. They all come together and they find for the first time in their life a home, and that's a powerful thing. And when you weaponize that and point that in a direction where you have all these kids who are not afraid to leave home, are used to suffering, used to getting punched in the mouth, and you teach them how to be the most elite weaponized force in the world.
Absolutely.
Dude, some bad, dangerous things happen.
Some great things happen.
Great things happen. I will tell you, living in the barracks, that is probably one of the most chaotic group of memories I have in my entire life.
Oh, it's wild, isn't it?
Dude.
Yeah.
Like the things that went down in the barracks room. Like I remember being a brand new private, being asleep on a weekend and my door getting kicked in at 4 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. in the morning. It's like an E4, E5, puking all over my floor, dragging you out in the hallway to fight. You got to take the CQ van to go pick drunk dudes up at the bar. it was like you just never knew. And you knew the next morning you're going to wake up, you're going to go to PT in a couple hours and get your balls smoked off and broke off.
Nobody gave a shit about last night. Like,
nobody cared.
Yep.
Yeah, nobody cared. And it was, you got to pay those dues day in and day out and day in and day out. And on the other side of that, when you get accepted into this murder frat, the family that you find, the benefits, the reward, the fruit that you reap is unlike any fruit that's tasted anywhere else ever again in your life. It's just, it's really difficult to replicate.
Yeah, man, I'd agree 100%. I was going to say, the amount of fights that you would see there. And it was just like, hey, let them fight. At the end of it, everyone's good. We're all shaking hands. We're brothers again. But yeah, it's you show up and you're prospecting for the opportunity. Like Rip got you there.
Yep.
And now that you're there, you have to prove yourself. And that first year, like for me, it was a year being a private. And it's just, it was wild. You're fighting, anything anybody needs, like you better be there. You better have it. You better, if it's dip, if it's, hey, go over there and beat that squad up. I remember we were playing beer pong with 3rd Platoon. And we set the table up, like the hallway was marked halfway. And we set the table up. They had their side and we had our side. And you didn't cross that line. Like that was the rule in the barracks. You don't cross that halfway mark, because if you do, it's no man's land. You're going to get in a fight.
It's game on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
And sometimes you go fishing for it.
Yeah.
My favorite was like when dudes from other platoons would come looking for something in your platoon AO area of operation. And you ball that dude up.
Yeah.
So they'd send another dude. Like, where the hell is that dude? You ball that dude up.
Getting balled up too, yeah.
Dude, before you know it, the whole company is like out in the quad just duking it out, because it turns into a platoon fight, which turns into a freaking company fight. Yep. It was just chaos. I don't think I've ever been choked out more times in my life. Like, it was crazy. Just absolute. It's impossible to paint a picture to appropriately articulate what that life was like.
One of my favorite memories, I was a young team leader at the time, and we were lined up for PT, right? And I don't know which platoon said it first, but they're like, hey, privates, go hit the ropes. And then the next platoon was like, hey, privates, go hit the ropes. And we were in 1st platoon. We're like, hey, privates, go hit the ropes, and you better not be last. And you just know, like, 3 platoons worth of privates over there. And it starts off like they're elbowing each other, and then they're pushing each other, and then they're fighting. And then somebody was like, Spec Force, go. And like, they just all went, and it just turned into this massive brawl in the quad, waiting on the first sergeant to come out to kick off PT. And he comes strolling out. It was First Sergeant Stover. He comes strolling out, and he just watches them for a while, like lets them all fight. Like, there's dudes like eyebrows are split open, noses are bleeding. Like, a couple guys are just unconscious laying out there in the quad. And they're like, all right, fall in. And he's just like, the dudes are just laying out there. They're still unconscious, and everyone's running back to get back in line. Like, all right, go do PT now. And it's just hilarious watching that stuff.
But here's what separates it right there. Okay. So most people would show up at this just insane, uncorked, violent, chaotic place. Okay. And be like, you know what? I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't for me. What makes Ranger Regiment unique is you get these lost boys that show up, see that, and they're like, holy shit, I found it.
This is for me.
This is for me. Yeah. And not only that, but they drill into you a level of competency that is unmatched. You become perfect. You become literally perfect. You train so often, so frequently. You don't train until you get it right. You train until you stop getting it wrong. And it takes that psychotic mentality, points in a direction, weaponizes it. Everybody's bought in. Everybody wants to be there. What was the worst thing in the world as a Ranger? The worst thing you could think of?
Getting kicked out.
Getting kicked out.
Yeah.
You wanted to be there. You wanted to suffer. I mean, we would do PT in the morning. Ridiculous, dude. Like, break you off every day. Like, just guys, like mid-run, puking. I remember we were on an airfield run one day. And do you know Geiger? You know who Geiger is?
Sounds familiar. I think so.
So he was leading this run, and he was like an insane, like one of those PT monsters, right? And we start puking. We start puking. And this leg unit, which for everybody listening, leg unit is like non-airborne, but what we refer to as leg is anybody who wasn't in special operations, came over and we're like, oh my gosh, are you guys okay? Dude, Geiger was like, don't fucking touch him. Don't talk to him. He's like, if you don't get your ass back in formation and finish this run, like all of you are fired. And that was just like, there was no plan B. It was be perfect every day, or there's your bag. And the worst thing you could think of was picking up that bag and leaving the brown fence. And the brown fence, for everybody listening, is in the special operations unit, they have these like fence lines that surround the compound, and it's like authorized personnel only. You can't look in. It's brown. It meant everything to be inside there. To suffer was a privilege.
Yeah.
And You wanted to.
Yeah, every single day you wanted to. You showed up with your A game. It was constantly, every single day was a competition with everybody.
Yeah.
You're always trying to be the best. You're always trying to get better at the things you're lacking at. You're challenging everyone around you and they're challenging you. And it's a daily competition no matter what you're doing.
The skill set that was built in that era of life, there's a lot of pros and cons with being in a unit like that. Number one, you develop unreasonable expectations of other people. So
of the world.
Of the world.
Yeah.
When you leave Ranger Regiment and you get into the civilian world, it becomes very difficult for a lot of people because you realize that the level of competency that you were expected to perform on will never exist again.
Yeah.
And it feels like a total letdown. Like this balloon just got completely deflated, right? And you're like, well, what kind of a team can I go be a part of that I'm going to replicate that feeling? And if you've never been a part of a winning team, a high level elite winning team, I don't know how to liken it other than being like on a Super Bowl NFL team or something where everybody's bought in, everybody's competing at the highest level. And it's incredibly difficult to make that transition.
Yeah.
You know, winning becomes addicting.
Yeah.
And not only that, but, you know, the height of the war, what we were doing in particular, the mission set, the op tempo, it was not like take a month to mobilize. We go to Kuwait for a month. It was like, hey, mofos.
Yeah.
We're doing insane training cycles for 6 months and we're going to rotate overseas and you're going to fight it out for 4 months. And the day you land, an hour.
Yeah.
Like have your kit ready because we're probably going out. And we're going out multiple times, hit after hit, night after night. The sausage grinder of not just patrolling, occupying, like maybe we drive over an IED and get into contact. It was like, no, here's the list. Here's your target set. Go find them.
Yeah. These guys want to fight.
Yeah. They want to fight and you need to go fight them.
Yeah.
And we were like, hell yeah. Like, let's go fight.
It was a blast. Yeah.
Yeah. So you did 3 deployments on the line.
Four.
Right?
Four on the line.
Okay, so for everybody listening, a line deployment is like when you have a special operations unit, it's broken up into different segments. So you have line guys who, I guess when you're thinking of, if you're playing Call of Duty or something like that, it's like the team of guys get off the bird and they go hit the target. They're blowing the door, flowing in, clearing room to room.
Yeah.
But then you have like these support elements. You have dog teams, you have sniper teams, you have like TSE teams, which like are a whole different rabbit hole, technology based. You have Recce. Okay. Tell us about Recce a little bit.
So yeah, after the 4 deployments, I went over to Recce and I mean, it's Reconnaissance. It's what we called our Reconnaissance platoon. And yeah, we would essentially we got really good at just hiding out in the woods. We went to all the schools we could go to, mountaineering schools, Reconnaissance Surveillance Leadership School or RSLIC. I don't even know if that's still a school anymore, but yeah, you throw your ruck on and you just walk. And then once you get there, we were doing 3-4 day offsets, mostly in training and stuff. The mission changed, we got over to once we deployed. But yeah, we would just train and it was lots and lots of walking. And then you'd get there and you'd hide out for another 3-4 days just out in the elements. And then typically you would have like a day or 2 walk back to link back up with somebody. And when we would do it, it was about a week long, every single training event that we did. And then, yeah, that would just get us ready and we would go over
And the mission is, you know, be invisible, essentially. Show up, you're going places that conventional forces weren't, by yourself, small elements. You need to be very out of the box thinker, problem solver, and blend in. Like when you're thinking about dudes in special operations and they're wearing Indige garb and they have big gnarly beards, this is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Recce.
Yeah.
You're going in.
That's what we're doing.
You're staying undercover, not being seen, observing, reporting, getting out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you got to get in a fight, hell's coming because
it's going to be a quick, violent one.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't have a platoon there. You don't have the assets. It's not something sustainable.
Yeah.
It has to be fast and you're out.
Yeah. It has to be really deterrent. Like, wow, the enemy needs to like think twice about like, holy shit, we just stirred up the hornet's nest. And in that second pause, you guys are out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a very unique job. So how many deployments did you do in Recce?
3 in Recce, 4 on the line. So 7 total.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm sitting here in the Wooby Hoody headquarters.
Yeah.
And can you tell me, first of all, I'm wearing a Wooby hoodie as we're recording this episode.
You look great, by the way.
Dude, it looks good. So I found you on social media. Funny enough, even though you and I were in the same unit, in the same compound for the same years, I didn't know you. I didn't know you till today, honestly.
No.
So I was in Coeur d'Alene. I bought one of your products for myself for Christmas. I've had my eye on what you were selling. I thought, man, this is such a cool company. What a creative idea. I realized that it was a veteran-owned company. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to hold out. I'm going to order from this guy, right? And ordered, messaged you. And I was like, hey, man, I love supporting veteran-owned businesses. I just bought one of your products. By the way, it looks like you're a Ranger.
Yeah.
He's like, you responded to me like, yeah, what years were you there? You know?
What company were you in?
Totally.
But yeah, the classic Ranger question. What company were you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, when two Rangers like meet each other that have never met each other before, there's a bit of like dog park butt sniffing going on. Is this guy full of shit or is he not? Because a lot of people say that they're from Ranger Regiment.
I was getting ready to say that. Well, a lot of people go with, oh, my cousin's a Ranger and 101st or whatever it is. And it's like, well, you're Ranger qualified. Like you can go to the school, you're Ranger qualified, you wear the tab, you go through RIP back when we were in, it's RASP now, but once you have the scroll, you're a Ranger, you're doing the Ranger mission, you are in Ranger Regiment. Yeah,
and RIP or RASP, for everybody listening, is everybody's familiar with BUDS. Navy SEALs go to BUDS, right? This is what the Army Ranger, the 75th Ranger Regiment, this is their selection program. It's equivalent to BUDS, right? The pipeline's different, and it's changed 100 times at this point from when you and I have come through, but that's basically it. So I messaged you, you messaged me back. We realized like, holy shit, we were there at the same time. Like dudes I know, vice versa. And I was like, bro, your company's so inspiring. I love following along. I got to get you on the podcast. And I said, hey, I'm in Coeur d'Alene right now. And you're like, oh shit, I'm in Sandpoint. It's a 45-minute drive. So I threw all the crap in the car. This is why you always need to be ready to say yes. Be prepared. Always be prepared. Drove up and dude, I mean, I bought your product, what was it, yesterday, 2 days ago? Yeah. And I'm sitting in your warehouse now and we're recording content.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Just that quick little chat we had and talking about real estate and all that. Like, hey, you want to be on my podcast? Like, yeah, man, anytime, let me know. Like, where are you? Coeur d'Alene. Yeah, come on up. Like, do it tomorrow.
So tell me, for everybody listening, the reason why I wanted a Wooby hoodie so bad is because veterans in particular, they have this weird affinity. There's like this love affair with the Wooby. The Wooby, for everybody listening, is commonly known as a poncho liner. So it's like a square piece of material that has like ripstop material and it's super lightweight. I don't know of a single training exercise, deployment, etc. I went on where I didn't stuff a Wooby in whatever it was, my day pack, my rucksack. They're these, how do you describe a Wooby? They're like super lightweight.
Yeah, so a quick backstory with it. It started because they used to issue the wool blankets, but during Vietnam, like carrying a wool blanket around, it made sense in World War II over in Europe, but Vietnam, it doesn't make sense anymore. You're out in the jungle, you're wet, it's humid, like that blanket turns into a 50-pound blanket. So they made the poncho liner, which probably hands down the best piece of equipment that was ever designed by the government at all, ever. But it's incredible. Cold, wet, hungry, tired. You wrap up in this thing and you're like, it changes your day. It changes your life. Like it's hard to explain until you've been in that moment. And that's why it's such a beloved piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's like nylon and polyester.
Yeah.
It's super thin. It's lightweight. It's obnoxiously warm for how light it is. Yeah, weather resistant.
It's almost magic. Like a lot of us refer to it. I don't know how to
explain it.
It doesn't make sense.
There aren't words for it.
It's super, super lightweight.
Yeah.
Super lightweight. I remember being in Ranger school and freezing my butt off. Mm-hmm. Freezing. Like the ground is frozen in Mountains Phase up in Dahlonega. And I pulled a Wooby out and you're warm.
Yeah.
And it's freezing outside, snowing.
Doesn't make sense.
But at the same time, you're like in Iraq, right? It's like 120 degrees and it's hot and you just need something in your hooch to like cover
wrap up
you
with. Yeah.
And it's like, you're not too hot. It's like perfectly balanced. I don't know how to explain it. It's
like covering
lightweight.
Up with a sheet, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's super lightweight. It weighs nothing. The material feels incredible. When a veteran that has suffered puts a Wooby on and like feels the material against their skin, it just brings back all these comforts. It's like, it's a security blanket.
Man. It is. Yeah. The Wooby. Yeah.
The Wooby.
Like a little kid's blanket.
The first thing I did when we got here today was like, yo, can I,
like,
can I go put one on? Can I try it on? I was so excited to see it. So you took this Wooby and you came up with this brilliant idea, turned it into a hoodie.
So the conversation's been had. I mean, I didn't have the very first conversation out there freezing our ass off. Like, somebody should turn this into a jacket. You know?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, yeah, somebody should.
Yeah. I mean, I remember having those conversations out at the range.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I had thought of it, and it actually all started because I was contracting at the time, and me and my roommate were like, man, I want one. Like, surely somebody's done it by now. And we just start scouring the internet. I mean, obviously, you check Amazon first. Like, oh, there's nothing on Amazon. That's interesting. So we just keep looking and keep looking. And I stumbled on this one company that had them, but they were sold out. And like, I'm looking at them, and it was just one of those things of like, okay, so it's popular. There's a demand and there's no supply. And we're sitting here, we're looking for it. So there's probably other people looking for it. And I'm looking at the products that this company has, and it's like, I think I can do it better. So that's where the whole research started. And yeah, that's where it kicked off.
So tell me about that journey of, okay, I want to do this. Because this is where most people stop. They're like, oh man, I should do this. And then you look at it and you're like, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And then most people stop right there.
So I think I had just read 4-Hour Workweek for probably the third or fourth time. I was looking for something. I'm picturing myself having this 4-hour workweek. Like, oh yeah, it's that easy. You know, I just read this book again and again. Like, I get it now. And so that was my goal. And like, even after I looked at it and I saw like, hey, this product, I want this product and it's not available. I think it still took me like 3 days before like the light bulb went off. I was like, oh yeah, that's the product that's my thing. I know about it. It's something I'm very familiar with. And yeah, I love it. Like, I'll do this. I used that book like a Bible. I started flipping through it, followed it step by step. Every single stage that I hit, it was right back to the book. And like, what do I do next? What do I do next? And started ordering samples. We got the samples in, we checked it, we tweaked them a little bit.
Where did you even figure out where to order samples from?
It's all in the book, right? I went to Alibaba, found, I think there was like 2 manufacturers making them. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll start there. I talked with one of them and they weren't going to work. I talked with the next one, and that's where I ordered my first sample. So I got that sample
Just
in.
raw material?
No, they made it.
They made it?
Yeah.
Did you have to order in bulk, or was it a single order?
No. This was, I think I got like 2 or 3 or something.
Okay.
For the first order, just to try them on. And so we got those. The sizes were very weird. They didn't fit normal. So we got those. We made a couple changes, got the next samples back. Those were good. So that's when I put my first order in. I think it was like the Woodland and the multicam. And I mean, it was maybe like 300. And that's where it started. We were selling them. Like, I would take them overseas with me. When I'd go on my trip, I'd have a whole nother bag full of them. We built a website on Shopify. My wife did.
Okay.
And we were just selling them there. We would just post on Instagram about it with a link to the website.
Got it. So you started your social media presence then. Wooby Hoody?
Yeah. I didn't even want to be the face of it.
Okay.
Like, I had other people modeling the hoodies because I was still like, no social media for me. And obviously grown out of that. But yeah, the whole thing started with like, let's do this. We'll do a post. And I think one of them, it was one of our early posts, and it was good. Like, it worked. I laid the Wooby hoodie on the floor, and I set like a bottle of Jameson down and a Glock 19 on it, and took a picture, and was like, Wooby hoodie. And I was like, boom, sales.
Really?
Like,
sales came from that.
Yeah, that one.
This is the incredible power of social media. And you and I were actually talking about this before we started recording the podcast. When you are in a special operations unit, and in the era that we were, okay, when we started, like, social media was not what it is now. Okay. In fact, we were not even allowed to have a Facebook. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We had to if we got caught with a Facebook, we were RFS, released for standards, we were kicked out. If you access social media overseas, you're kicked out.
All the computers are being monitored.
Everything, emails, phone calls. It was so ingrained in our brain. You will not talk about what you are doing. You will not talk about missions, code names, nothing, where you are. I remember being overseas, you go to the phone booth. They had like this row of phones divided with like plywood.
Yeah.
And there would be pieces of paper.
Yeah. I knew what you were going to say.
Yeah. And they'd tell you, like, here's what you can and cannot say. Like, talk about the weather, talk about the food you ate.
Yeah.
Like, do not mention location, operations. Guys like us transition into entrepreneurship, especially in today, 2023, 2024. Your business is not going to make it if you don't have a digital presence. It's not.
Yeah.
The psychological hurdle that you had and I had to overcome to start talking about what we were doing is massive. So many people, especially kids like right now, they're growing up in a generation where there's never not been a phone in their hand. They're not talking. There's never been a time when they're not talking to the phone.
Yeah.
Bro, that is not where we came from.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of unlearning and relearning to push ourselves out of our comfort zone. It feels unnatural.
Yeah.
We were just having this conversation.
Yeah. It's a huge step to go from don't talk about anything to share everything.
Everything.
With the wild. You're just putting it out there like, this is it.
It feels wrong.
It does.
It feels wrong. But you and I were talking about
dirty.
it is like, you know, and I want to get into more of the journey of the company because there's a story to be told. I'm going to let you tell it. But essentially, when we were backed up against a corner and you and I were similarly backed up against a corner, we had to come to terms with, do we care what other people are going to think?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, our kids got to eat.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, screw it.
Yep.
Screw what these people are thinking. This is how I'm going to feed my kids. And so we had to learn to use social media.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You put a Wooby hoodie on the floor with Jameson and a Glock 19 and started generating sales.
Yeah.
How did you learn about Shopify?
Man, honestly, I have no idea. That might have been her idea. It might have been in the book, but that was something I think we were trying to build a web page, and I don't know how we came across it, but Shopify was the easiest way to do it because I think we started this like 5 years ago. It was probably the end of 2018 is when we started working on it. And yeah, she did all that. She handled all of it. I'm terrible with computers. Like I check my email and I'm like 2 other websites and that's about it. And it was just one of those things. It was me and her. We didn't have money to hire people. We didn't have money to like do a huge marketing campaign or anything like that. We built this thing from the ground, and everything that you're seeing now, everything we're talking about, everything we're doing started with me and her in our kitchen. We
with
had
Shopify.
With Shopify, and we had the hoodies in the shop out back, and we would pack them on our kitchen table at night. And actually up till just last year, I mean, we just got this place. Our hoodies were still in the shop. We would have to go get them in the middle of winter, like drive over there, load up the car. It's freezing cold. And it's her, like she's a rock star, right? She would go get them. The boys are in their car seats. Like she's running in there, grabbing all these hoodies, throwing them in the back, drive them back home, pack them up, turn around, load everyone back up, go to the post office, drop them off. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, dude.
And during this whole time, you're rotating overseas and coming home, contracting. It's for everybody listening, you're like, what the heck is contracting? We're not talking about swinging hammers here. Give a breakdown, explain contracting to the general public.
So when I got out in 2012, I started doing like mobile security overseas. And I mean, that's pretty much the job. You go over there for a few months at a time. You're home for a few months at a time. And you just go over there and you're just like traveling security.
Yeah.
And
you needed a way out. I mean,
yeah,
it's a great paying job. Great paying.
Yes.
But lifestyle sucks. You're gone all the time. You're always gone.
Yeah.
I have friends who are still to this day contracting. They've been contracting for 12 years. And they need an out and have no idea how to get out.
Yeah, because you fall into a comfort zone. Like the cash is good and everybody knows it. That's why you get into it, especially getting out of the military. It's like, what am I going to do? Here's this incredible high paying job and they need all my skills.
Yeah. I mean, think about the alternative. Guys that come from the community that we came from, we get heavily recruited to come work for these companies, these contracting companies. And you can look at it like this. You're getting out of the military. You don't really know what you're going to do. I guess you could use your GI Bill and go to college, or you can go work a 3-month contract and come home with 6 figures.
Exactly.
I don't know. What do you think you're going to pick?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And then you just fall into this sedentary zone where you just stop progressing. You just know you're just doing what's comfortable and known.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with anybody having a regular job. It's like, I'm comfortable here. I don't want to change this because I know I have a paycheck coming in. It's a good paycheck. I know what's available to me with this.
And there's some ego. You're still doing the job.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's still fun. You get to hang out with the boys. I think that was one of the biggest parts was like, you're still seeing guys, one that I served with personally. I would still get to see them. And then you got all these other guys too that were just rock stars everywhere. And like, you get those minds together and man, the conversations you have, like the stuff you're doing, like all of it is just, it's a fun time.
Yeah, it is fun. It is fun. And it's easy to get stuck there. So how long were you rotating on these contracts overseas while you're just dinking along Wooby Hood? It's more of like a passion project kind of thing, right?
So let's see, we started in 2018. I think we went live like early 2019 is when it officially kicked off. And we're building it. We're playing with it, having fun, not really taking it too serious. Like we're making a little bit of money and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we can whatever, go shopping or something. And we didn't really have a plan for the money either. There was
like, what kind of money are you guys making at this point?
Man, I think like one of our biggest month, I think when we broke $1,000, I was
in like gross revenue after expenses.
Yeah, that was like gross.
Yeah.
We sold $1,000 worth of hoodies. Like my mind was blown. I couldn't believe that we even did that. And I had no exit strategy either. It was just kind of like, yeah, I'll just do this for a while until I guess it becomes not cool or everybody I know has one. So I guess I don't need to re-up anymore. And yeah, we just kept going and we just kept building. I remember when we sold $3,000 worth of hoodies. I was like, oh shit, new milestone. Like that's awesome. But still had no plan. And then 2020, we got pregnant with our boys, Luke and Liam, and it almost just stopped. I was still deploying overseas. We're up here in Sandpoint. She's from Costa Rica. I'm from Kansas. We have no family up here, no support system. It's us two doing this. And we're just kind of at this point of like, do we keep doing this? Do we just sell everything off and be done with it? Because she's raising 2 newborns by herself while I'm gone. And yeah, I mean, it was a ton of work.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
So this is like a pivotal transition in the story here. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that we highlight this because the next part of the story, for a lot of people, it wouldn't have gone the way it's going for you. Yeah. And that comes down to grit. It comes down to being really driven, purpose-driven, and focused on a belief system. And it comes down to intestinal fortitude, having the stones to stand in the fight and stand up, head up, shoulders back for what you believe in. And this instance catapulted you into the unknown, but it's also forcing you to grow beyond what you thought you ever could have been.
Yeah.
As we make this transition, I just wanted to highlight that in this part of the story because it's similar to how this started for me, this podcast, the businesses that I'm building. And we're going to see it start being talked about more and more about this one instance being probably the best thing that ever happened to any one of us because there's an army. There's an army of people who are fed up, who are disenfranchised, who are becoming autonomous, ungovernable, and financially free because we want to be in control of our own destinies. And we're not going to sit and bend the knee for a paycheck. And this one single event was the catalyst unintentionally. I don't think there could have been anybody that predicted it.
No.
But once you let the dogs out of the cage, dude, they're never coming back. And that's what I want to talk about next. So there's a ton to dig into. What we're going to do is we're going to cut this and use this as the teaser for part 2 coming next week. So everybody listening in the studio right now, stay tuned, button up, because TJ and I are about to break down the next part of the adventure and where they are at now. And we're going to cover everything. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about pain. We're going to talk about endurance. And we're going to talk about how he's being super creative, taking top line revenue from the company and investing in assets, real estate, creative deals that he's doing to make sure that his family is financially free and ungovernable and autonomous. And that is what is in store on this next episode. So if you are listening, stay tuned for part 2 of this episode of the Wooby Hoody CEO and founder. We will catch you all on the flip side.